This video will show you the best enchants you can get for every single fishing rod in Fisch. So if you're confused on what fishing rod you should get, or you want to know the best one you can get for each fishing rod in the game, make sure to watch all the way to the end of this video. But yeah guys, if you want to find a specific rod, there is timestamps in the description so you guys can easily find whatever rod you are looking for. Anyways, first we are going to start with the flimsy rod. If you guys don't know, the flimsy rod is the very first rod you ever get in Fisch, and I recommend getting 0 enchants. Do not enchant this rod, because if you use an enchant on this rod, you're 100% wasting it, because you're probably going to get a new rod very soon. Now for the training rod. Guys, once again, for the training rod, do not enchant it. Plastic rod, do not enchant it. Same thing for lucky rod, fast rod, and carbon rod. Please do not get enchants on any of these rods. It is 100% a waste. And to add on to that list real quick, do not get enchants on the long rod or the stone rod. 100% useless. But that covers just about every rod that is at Moosewood. Let's start at Rosslet Bay. Once you guys actually make it to Rosslet Bay, there are some rods that I would say you can get enchanted. But guys, the fortune rod is not, I repeat, the fortune rod is not a rod you should enchant. Same thing with the magma rod and the fungal rod, which you get from quests. Do not enchant those rods. But guys, there is some rods on Rosslet Bay that I would recommend enchanting, and that is not the rapid rod. Do not enchant the rapid rod at all. 100% a waste. But the steady rod, on the other hand, oh my goodness, this is a rod I would actually say you could possibly enchant. First and foremost, I would say I do not recommend getting an enchant, but if you really want it, you can either get hasty enchant, swift enchant, or abyssal enchant. If you want to get fast catches because it's very slow, it's one of the slowest rods in the game, then get hasty or swift. And I'm saying hasty or swift because it doesn't matter. I'd be honest, just use like maybe 1 or 2 enchant relics because this rod is still very low tier. And I would recommend saving up for the Arctic rod, which is 25,000. But yeah, if you want abyssal on that rod, you can also get abyssal. It's pretty simple. Like if you want money, try to get abyssal. If you want to go fast, try to get hasty. But overall, probably don't enchant the steady rod and save up for the Arctic rod, which is the rod I'm going to talk about next. Okay guys, so for the Arctic rod, which is this rod right here, I have unbreakable, but I do not recommend unbreakable. 100,000% I would either recommend hasty if you want fast catches, abyssal or quantum if you want way more money, but I do not recommend using an exalted relic on it because you can get an upgrade pretty soon, and exalted relics are very rare. But if you guys want the fastest way to get exalted relics, I'll pop that up on the screen right now, and yeah, that's just a good method to get exalted relics. But yeah, overall for the Arctic rod, I would say get hasty because that's the one that's going to help you progress the absolute fastest. Before I forget, we're also going to go over the magnet rod. If you are using this rod for anything other than catching crates, please just don't. This rod is horrible for anything other than catching crates. But if you are trying to catch crates, I would recommend getting hasty because this rod is very slow. So yeah, if you actually really want to use the magnet rod, just get hasty on it. That's my suggestion. And real quick, just in case anybody is wondering about this really weird rod called the nocturnal rod, I would say 100% do not enchant it. Matter of fact, don't even get that rod. It's really bad. Now for some rods a little bit better, like the Arctic rod. Now we're going to go over the reinforced rod. If you didn't know, even though this rod has pretty bad stats, it's very useful because it can fish in the Rosslet volcano, which is right behind me. And even though the stats are bad, it is just good because it's hard to fish in a volcano if you don't have this rod. But if you didn't know, you can actually fish in a volcano if you use an exalted relic to get this enchant called invincible. But I wouldn't recommend using invincible on a good rod because to be honest, invincible, it's not worth it for anything other than catching lava. Anyways guys, for this one I would 100% recommend either resilient or controlled to help with catching higher rarity fish because they're very hard to catch since this has a low resilience of 0%. So yeah, for the reinforced rod, 100% either get resilient or controlled. Real quick, we're going to go over the avalanche rod. I will tell you guys right now, yes, I have an enchant on it, but if you guys are low level and you think this rod is somehow better than the Arctic rod because it's more expensive, it's not. So I would recommend not to use your enchants on this and just use the Arctic rod. And once again, for the Arctic rod, I would recommend hasty. But if you really, for some reason, want to actually enchant this rod, just go ahead and get hasty on it. Now we're going to talk about a rod that you can get in Ancient Isles called the Phoenix rod. To be completely honest, I do not recommend to enchant the Phoenix rod, but if you really want, I would say get Divine on it just because it has pretty low luck. So Divine gives it like a pretty good luck boost. So I would say get Divine if you really want to enchant the Phoenix rod, but otherwise I recommend just getting the Arctic rod. Okay, now guys, we're going to go over the Scurvy rod. If you guys didn't know, you get the Scurvy rod in Ancient Isles as well. Sorry, not Ancient Isles, but Forsaken Shores. You get it in the Pirates room and it costs 50,000. Once again, I do not recommend getting this rod over the Arctic rod because the Arctic rod is way better in almost every aspect. But since this is an all-rounder rod, I would actually recommend for you guys to either get quality on this rod or abyssal if you just want to make more money. But overall, I would say if you want to enchant the Scurvy rod, just get quality on it. Now we're going to do a quick talk about the Midas rod. So the Midas rod has decent lore speed, bad luck, bad control, horrible resilience, and horrible max kg. But it does help if you want to get anything with the Midas enchant. I meant to say Midas Midas freaking what's it called, mutation. Like if you want something cool like this. So I would say if you're just trying to catch heavier fish with it and you want the cool mutation on it, get Herculean, which raises the max kg by 30,000. That one's very good. And if you guys want to insta catch with this rod, get hasty. All right, those are your two best options personally. Okay, now we're going over one of the rods in this tier, which is actually also a really good rod, and I am talking about the crystallized rod. Guys, the crystallized rod is really good because if you don't have this rod, it is impossible to catch crystallized relics or anything with the crystallized mutation. So if you want to get the rod of the exalted one, you 100% need this rod. But yeah, for enchants, I would recommend either getting hasty on this, and to be honest, that's it. That's what I would say. I would say hasty if your primary use for the rod is to get enchant relics. But if you don't want hasty on it and you want to catch like lava fish, obviously get invincible. And if you want to catch heavier fish with it, since it has a pretty bad max kg, like if you want to catch certain megalodons and stuff like that, I would say get Herculean. But personally, since I use it to get enchant relics, I would get the hasty one. I don't have any enchant on it right now, but if I did, I would definitely get the hasty enchant. Now for the brick rod. All right, the brick rod is a really cool rod because this one allows you to get the studied, what am I talking about? The studded enchant, but it has very low lore speed, so I would almost always suggest getting hasty on this rod. But it's also an okay rod for XP farming, so if you want to use it for XP farming, I would recommend to get clever. For anything that requires XP farming, always get clever. Now for the Aurora rod, which I personally think is a bad rod, but if you want to use it to catch stuff with the Aurora enchant, these are the enchants you should use. Number one, always do hasty just because it's a pretty slow rod in general, so hasty would be great. But if you guys want to catch heavier fish, Herculean, I mean obviously it's obvious. Also, if you're just trying to catch rare fish in general with it and you are trying to, like, you know, make it easier to catch the fish, that's when I would recommend to use Resilient. Now we're going to go over the mythical rod. Guys, you get this rod from the Traveling Merchant, and even though it is a horrible rod, for some reason some people want to enchant it. I mean, I won't say it's a horrible rod, all right? It does give the mythical enchant whenever you like, it gives a pretty high chance to get the mythical enchant, so it's not a horrible rod. So I will actually recommend some enchants for you guys to use for this one. Number one is Resilient, just to help with catching higher rarity fish, because the resilience on this rod is absolutely horrible. And speaking about stuff on this rod is horrible, the lore speed is 0, so if you want anything faster than 0, get hasty. I feel like I've been talking in this location for way too long, so let's move a little bit. And if you guys have watched this far in the video, make sure to subscribe to join the Ayze family and just support me. That's a free way to support me. All you have to do is subscribe. I really appreciate it. Anyways, guys, now we're going Now I'm going to tell you guys about the King's Rod. If you didn't know, you buy the King's Rod at the Keeper's Altar. It is like 120,000 credits. Yeah, 120,000 credits. And it's an okay rod. Personally, I would either recommend the Arctic Rod or the Trident Rod if you want a like similar rod to this. Anyways, guys, the biggest problem about the King's Rod is its incredibly slow lure speed, negative 45%. So I would almost always recommend to get hasty on this rod. But if you want money, just go for Abyssal. Now I'm going to go over the Ice Warper's rod. Personally, I think it is trash compared to the Arctic Rod, but if you guys do want an enchant on it, I would either recommend getting quality because it's kind of an all-around rod, or getting hasty because it has very slow lure speed. But my general advice to anyone who's using this rod is switch to Arctic Rod. Anyways, guys, now I'm going to tell you guys about the Depth Seeker rod, which is a rod you can buy for 40,000 credits in Atlantis. The rod is okay for beginners. It's actually, I would say it's a decent beginner's rod, especially since they dropped the price to 40,000. But the only thing is its lure speed could be better. So if you get hasty on it, you can get insta catches. So that's the only enchant I will recommend for that rod. Okay, guys, now for the Champion's rod. This one's actually pretty good. I'm sure a lot of you guys are watching this part because many people use this rod. Anyways, if you didn't know, you can get this rod in Atlantis for 80,000 credits, and it's a small minor upgrade to the Arctic Rod. So I would actually definitely recommend getting this rod. But if you want an enchant on it, I would recommend getting hasty because it gets you an instant catch almost every time. And if you are trying to just mainly grind levels, get clever or insight. Mostly clever. Insight's kind of trash. And now we are going to get into some better rods, you guys. Starting off with the Trident Rod, which is actually very hard to get the Trident Rod. But if you want it, I have a tutorial. I'm gonna link it in the top right. So it's probably somewhere literally on my face. But if you click the info thing in the corner of the screen, it'll show the Trident Rod tutorial I have on my channel, and you can watch that and get it very easily. Anyways, the only problem with the Trident Rod is it's very slow lure speed, and it's also really bad controller resilience. But since the control in resilience is bad, and it has the piercing ability, it has an ability to pierce, which makes it way faster, and you don't have to have great control or resilience. But since this rod is slow, get hasty on it, and it will be a way better rod, especially for catching enchant relics in the depths. But once again, if you want money, either get Abyssal or Quantum, but I would not waste an exalted relic on this rod at all. Now we're going to go over the Summit Rod. This is a rod you can buy in the Northern Expedition for 300,000 credits. And even though I think this rod is kind of trash compared to some other ones, if you really want to get this rod for 300k, either get hasty or swift on it just to make it faster because it has slow lure speed. Okay, now we're gonna go over one I don't even have called the Precision Rod. But if you really want to enchant it, it's kind of a trash rod. But if you want to enchant it, get hasty on it, it just makes it go way faster. Now we're gonna go over one I actually do have, which is called the Wisdom Rod. I mean, if I can actually find it. I don't know if I'm just not seeing it or something, but whatever. I guess the Wisdom Rod isn't in my inventory right now. But the only okay thing about this is it gives like a pretty decent XP boost like every 5 catches. But overall, I would suggest not getting this rod or enchanting it. But if you really want to enchant it, I would say get Clever because it's literally an XP rod. Now we're gonna go over another rod you can get from enchanting called not enchanting, but crafting. It's called the Resourceful Rod. This rod is literally not recommended for any purpose at all. So I would honestly recommend not to get it or enchant it. But if you really want to enchant it, I would say get Resilient or Hasty because the stats are just horrifying. Now we're going to start getting into some really good rods, you guys. The Rod of the Depths is the next one I'm about to talk about, and oh my goodness, so many people have been requesting this. As you guys can see, I have Immortal on it, but no, do not get Immortal on this rod. It really depends on like what exactly you're trying to do, but personally, I would say if you're trying to make money, get Quantum or Abyssal. But if you are trying to get levels, which I use this rod to get from level 100 to level 500. And if I was doing that, and when I was doing that, I had the clever enchant on this rod, which gives 2.25 times XP and is what I recommend for the Rod of the Depths. And oh, if you want to catch megalodons with it, you have to have the Herculean enchant because unfortunately it holds only 30,000 kg. Anyways guys, now for the Rod of the Exalted One. Only one I will ever recommend on this one is Hasty. As you guys can see, I have Hasty on it because the only use for this rod is literally farming exalted relics. So yeah, if you want to farm exalted relics faster, use Hasty. Now for the Destiny Rod, which I don't know why. Oh, never mind. There it is. There is the Destiny Rod. For this rod, I would honestly recommend not getting it because it has high luck, but the other stats are just horrifying. But I guess it does help. Like it technically helps you get shiny fish. It has a 5% chance to do so. So if you want to make that higher percentage, get blessed. That enchant gives 2% higher, what's it called? Shiny slash sparkling, whatever. And if you guys want to make this rod actually possible to catch things with, either get resilient, or if you want to make it faster, just get Hasty. Anyways guys, now for the Sunken Rod. This one's actually fine. You only get it out of treasure chests, and it really helps you get treasure maps, which honestly, I just wouldn't get this rod slash use this rod. I mean, you can just get it on accident, but I wouldn't get this rod. But if you really want to get the rod, get Hasty because that's the only thing that'll be useful for it. Okay, now we're going to be talking about the rod called the Riptide Rod. You can get this rod by crafting, and no, I don't have it because this rod is trash and you shouldn't get any enchants on it. But if you really like genuinely really want enchants on this for some reason, get either Resilient or Hasty. Okay, now we're going to be talking about the Abyssal Spectre Rod, which yes, I actually do have this one. This one's okay. I will say it's okay. But for the cost of $1 million, this is not okay. This is a war crime. But since it has a pretty high lure speed already, if you want to get it to insta catch fish, just get it to 100% lure speed and kaboom, kabam, it is an insta catch. Anyways guys, now we're going to get into the really good rods like the Atlantis rods and stuff like that. We're going to be starting off with the Zeus Rod. If you didn't know, you can buy this rod for 1.7 million in the Atlantis area. But yeah, the only ones I would actually recommend for this rod is Steady to quickly catch fish because its passive does a lot. Like it turns the whole area into a thunderstorm. So like if you turn the whole area into this thunderstorm, you're gonna need to catch the fish really fast. Which is why I would either recommend to get Steady just to make that progress bar go by a little bit faster, or you can get Hasty just to make it insta catch, but it's a little bit of a waste just because it already has 70% lure speed. Now we're going to be talking about a rod that is so popular right now called the Tempest Rod. This one already has really good stats. So the one that I would recommend for this rod is clever if you're grinding for XP. And since it's already an all-around rod, if you get quality on this rod, oh my goodness, absolute peak performance. But yeah, that's what I recommend for Tempest Rod. All right guys, now for the last of all the Atlantis rods, the Poseidon Rod. This rod, honestly, I would say it looks so cool. That's my favorite part about this rod. But the only bad part about it is its low lure speed. So if you get that to 100%, which you can do if you get Hasty on this rod, you can insta catch, which is why for this rod, the only one I recommend is Hasty. Now you guys, for the Heavens Rod, which, oh my goodness, I remember when this rod first came out, it was so hard to get. So if you guys want a full tutorial, I'll also have that in the top right, somewhere around here, all right? Just look for that. I have a great video on it. Anyways, it has lure speed 30, which is why I would always recommend to get Hasty on this rod. This is the rod I use when I'm always trying to catch, like let's say I'm trying to catch a megalodon or something like that. I would always use the Hasty Heavens Rod just because it's the fastest way to get the most amount of luck. And guys, I almost forgot the Kraken Rod. Oh my goodness. I know if I forgot the Kraken Rod, some of y'all would come after me in the comments. But don't worry guys, I'm not gonna forget. I know this rod's really cool because it gives like the tentacle surge, enchant, mutation, whatever that is. That's why this rod's cool to me. Also, it has like tentacles coming around everywhere, which is Also kind of cool, but it does have a little bit of a slow lure speed problem, which I would recommend getting hasty for. And since its resilience is a little bit low, it's not super low, it's a little bit low. You can get resilient on it to just make it a little bit easier on you. All right, guys, now we're going to talk about the Voyager rod. To be honest, I only recommend this rod if you want to get more fossilized relics, but yeah, if you want to catch those faster, get hasty. On this rod, get hasty. Now we're going to be talking about the Lost rod, which honestly, I think this rod is trash and you should never get it, but if you want it, I would recommend to get resilience because it has very bad resilience. And if you want to activate the special mode on the rod more often, I would say just get hasty on it. And hasty is always just a really safe enchant. That one's almost always good. Unless you have the next rod, which is, oh my goodness, guys, I've been through so much with this rod. The no life rod. This rod you get at level 500, and as you guys can see, I have 21,000 fish caught with it. I absolutely love this rod. Anyways, the first enchant I can always recommend on this one is Clever, because this is the rod I used to grind from level 500 to 1000. But if you're trying to make money with it, either get Quantum or Abyssal. Those are both really good choices. But yeah, those are the only 3 I recommend for the no life rod. And guys, we're now on to the last 4 rods. We're going to start with the Celestial rod. You can only get this rod from crafting, and I do not have it, but I do have some recommendations for you guys. This rod is mainly used for getting the Celestial mutation on fish. So like if you want to get that cool mutation, I would say, yeah, this rod is a pretty good choice. And I would also recommend for you guys to get hasty if you want to catch stuff faster. But some of the fish are really difficult, especially since the stats on this rod aren't very strong, which is why I would say you can either get controlled or resilience to just make it a little bit easier on you guys. Now we're going to be talking about the Rod of the Eternal King, if I can find it. And yes, it is right here. The Rod of the Eternal King is really good. The stats aren't the greatest, but this is the best rod for catching greedy. Like if you guys want to catch any sort of greedy relics, you need this rod. But yeah, I would recommend to get hasty for this rod just because it helps you get like it helps you get greedy relics faster, and just anything greedy. If you're trying to catch anything greedy, it would be great. And it also gives you this thing on the bottom of your screen called Royal Escort, which just gives you super high luck for like 10 seconds. But yeah, to be completely honest with you guys, I just recommend getting hasty on this rod. The rod's really good, no complaints on it. And as you can see, since I don't have hasty, that was just a super slow catch. Anyways, guys, and now for the Rod of the Forgotten Fang. Guys, you get this rod at level 750, and honestly, it really underwhelmed me, and I just continue to use the no life rod to grind to level 1000. But I do have the best enchant on it, which is quality, just because all the stats are already so good. And if you're like trying to catch something and not just trying to grind for XP, this is a really good rod. In quality, it's a good enchant. All right, I'll say quality makes this rod really good. Oh my goodness, guys, we're finally on the last rod, which is the Seraphic rod. If I could just find it in my inventory somehow. But yeah, guys, this is the Seraphic rod. As you guys can see, for some reason I have piercing enchant on it, which is absolutely not the best enchant. But to be honest, since the only thing you can really grind for once you have this rod is money, I would recommend to get a money enchant. So either Quantum or Abyssal is just really good for this rod. I need Quantum, which is why I need to go farm for some more exalted relics. But if for some reason they raise the level cap, I would recommend to get Clever on this rod. But yeah, that is my rod guide. Thank you guys for watching. If this helped at all, please like the video. It helps me out a lot, and subscribe to join the Ayze family. I'm gonna see you guys in the next one. Peace.